Tonight on Nova, one of the wonders of the natural world, rarely seen by outsiders. Baikal, the lake of superlatives. The oldest, the purest, the deepest. Through the seasons, deep in the heart of Russia, we journey to the Sacred Sea.
Funding for NOVA is provided by Lockheed, America's aerospace company, supporting math, science, and engineering education for national technology leadership.
And by Merck, dedicated to pharmaceutical research, committed to discovery, improving health, extending life. Merck.
Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
There may be no lake in the world with a greater hold on the hearts of those who live near it. Baikal, the lake that can make a poet out of anyone who sees it. Baikal is home to 1,500 species found nowhere else. Its water is astonishingly clean. The world's most ancient lake, it was formed more than 25 million years ago. Next to ordinary lakes, Baikal seems eternal. 4,000 miles from Moscow, Baikal lies in south-central Siberia. 400 miles long, 40 wide, and a mile deep, it holds 1/5 of the world's supply of fresh water. It takes 336 tributaries to feed it. It would take 400 years to drain it. Formed by a rift 7 times deeper than the Grand Canyon, Baikal sits in the Earth's deepest land depression. Even today, tectonic plates are pulling it apart about an inch a year. To the people of Baikal, the lake is almost a living presence. Russian novelist Valentin Rasputin has often written about its deeper meaning to those who know it best.
The Russians came to settle here in the 17th century. It seemed strange to them the way the local nomadic tribes related to the lake. They didn't think of it as a lake. They called it the sea, and they expected visitors to do likewise. If the somewhat disrespectful lake was used, one could expect unpleasant things to happen to him, possibly even death. On this rock, a mother has made an inscription. It says, "Baikal, help me to find my son's murderer." Her son had been found dead not far from this place, and nobody knew what had caused his death. And she is asking Lake Baikal with reverence and heartfelt emotion to see to it that justice is done.
It's now summer on Baikal, and a fishing boat casts off in the early morning. The mist is especially thick today. When warm air hits the 40-degree water, it seems as if the clouds themselves have descended. Baikal's water can be a grave for the unwary, or it can be a cradle for a remarkable variety of life. Entire forests of sponges are found at a depth of 500 feet. The sponges are impregnated with bright green algae, which provide them with oxygen. This huge shrimp, unique to Baikal, feeds upon the sponges. To propagate themselves, the sedentary sponges release eggs and sperm into the water. The fertilized egg will begin to grow into an adult sponge after swimming for 10 days and planting itself in a rocky crevice. Together, sponges and dozens of varieties of shrimp, or gammarids, play a vital role in the purification of the lake. The sponge acts as a filter, extracting decaying matter and bacteria from the water, keeping it pure. The gammarids then graze on the sponge, cleaning its filter holes. But it's this microscopic creature, the Epischura, that does more to keep Baikal pure than any other species. One tiny Epischura filters 15 cubic yards of water each year.
If the Epischura were to disappear, nothing could replace it. No matter what other organisms appeared, it would be impossible to get the same quality of water. This is a characteristic feature of Lake Baikal. 2/3 of the animals living in the lake are endemic. They can't be found any other place on Earth. They have evolved in the lake and have created this unique environment.
Three islands in Baikal are home to another unique species, the Nerpa, the only freshwater seal in the world. It's estimated that 60,000 Nerpa live in Baikal. They tend to be extremely shy of people and are seldom seen. In appearance, they resemble the Caspian seal and probably migrated here from the Arctic during the last ice age. Although they constantly jostle each other for room in the sun, serious fights are rare. Napping invariably takes precedence over fighting. The Nerpa mate in early summer. No one has actually seen it, but it is believed to take place underwater. The people of Baikal have their own unique features and are equally tied to the lake. In this village on the eastern shore, a church serves as a reminder of Baikal's past. The first Russians who settled Baikal came seeking religious freedom. In the 17th century, a prominent religious leader named Avakum fought against church reform and became the first man exiled to Siberia. Others soon followed. Here there was a special kind of freedom in the remoteness of the land. In time, the Christian Russians began to see Baikal as a great spiritual force. Guarding the entrance to Baikal's largest island is a rock sacred to another people who arrived here centuries before the Russians. They believed this was the home of Burhan, god of the lake. Burhan was named by the Buryat, a semi-nomadic tribe of ethnic Mongols. These Buryat celebrants were filmed in the early part of the century, paying homage to the white elephant, an incarnation of Buddha. But even as devout Buddhists, the Buryat have not forgotten Burhan, god of Baikal. Today, they honor both traditions as they remember their dead with prayer flags. The flags are also prayers for the living, for continued health and happiness. Prayers to Buddha and prayers to Burhan. At a nearby monastery, a Buddhist monk chants in praise of the harmony of nature. A key feature of both Buddhism and earlier shamanistic beliefs is a profound respect for nature. And here, nature means Baikal. Buryat and Russians now live side by side. This is Huzhir, once a traditional Buryat village and now a mixed community with a large number of ethnic Russians. Life couldn't be much slower here. There's not enough work, few sources of entertainment, and little to buy. This store has an ample supply of bread, but not much else besides canned food. Fortunately, just outside, there's a boat full of omul, the Arctic whitefish that accounts for 2/3 of the annual commercial catch. Almost all of the fish will be smoked or salted, the way Siberians prefer it. Still, fresh omul cooked over an open fire is always welcomed. For these boys, the lake is their playground and their future. For their parents, the lake is their livelihood and their past. All their memories are bound up with it. There is no separating the people of Baikal from the lake itself. Autumn comes swiftly to Baikal. Swaths of color transform the taiga, with its larch, birch, beech, and pine. On the eastern side of the lake, in this sheltered bay, boats and nets are hauled in for repair in the lull before the autumn storms begin. There's a chill in the air, but the people of Baikal are in no hurry to bow to the inevitable. To the south lies the Great Salanga River. Flowing 1,000 miles from Mongolia, it supplies half of Baikal's water. Its delta covers a vast area and carries sediment far into the center of the lake. In autumn, the delta fills with millions of migrating birds, feeding on the rich profusion of life they find here. A 100 years ago, Chekhov wrote that the Salanga River was pure beauty. The water level in the delta varies from year to year, providing different feeding opportunities for different species. This year, the level is high, covering much of the land, and proving especially attractive to long-legged birds. But for the lapwings, there is still more than enough dry land for hunting worms and insects. The widgeon, the mallard, and the teal also find ample food here. For these birds, nothing can compare to the Salanga's bounty. Many of them have come from the far north and need to stop here to recharge before continuing south. Winter is now only a few steps behind them. Baikal begins to brood as the days grow shorter. The fishermen fear its moods. They say the lake can be vengeful, sending 7 different winds from all directions to roil its waters and batter its shores. In 1903, the wind they call Sharma reached 90 miles an hour and killed 280 people. The people of Baikal know how capricious the lake can be. These rugged cliffs were thrown up when Baikal was created by tectonic forces. But the local people read a different story of creation in the cliff's face. It is said here that the lake's birth was sudden and violent. A huge red-hot stone fell from the sky, and when it hit the ground, there was a deluge of rain. Earth, stone, and water came to a boil, and in that cataclysm the lake was born. Only a fool would underestimate Baikal now, knowing of its past. Beneath the beauty, there remains an ancient threat of violence, hidden deep within the earth. In 1861, a powerful earthquake struck Baikal. 3 Buryat villages disappeared underwater. "80 square miles of land were submerged. A new bay was created called Travle, the Abyss. Winter on Baikal begins in late October, but it isn't until January that the lake completely succumbs. For the next 5 months, the ice will be 6 feet thick and as smooth as glass. Baikal is Siberia's winter carnival. Imagine a skating rink 400 miles long from north to south and 40 miles across. Baikal's water is so clean, the ice is almost transparent. It's impossible to gauge its thickness by sight alone. As Valentin Rasputin has said, I encounter Baikal and feel my own deafness and dumbness, my own inability to describe what I see before me. Man does not have enough feelings to respond to this wonder. Baikal's ice is so strong, in 1904 it held the weight of a railroad and even an army. In the center of the lake, there used to be a rest house where travelers stopped for tea and fed their horses. Today, roads of ice carry traffic for more than 100 days a year. Trucks and even tanks traverse the lake, along with dozens of family cars. This is not the lifeless, wintry desert that strangers expect to find in Siberia. Instead, Baikal comes alive most in winter. The people of the lake are set free by the ice. Dependent on boats for the rest of the year, they can now come and go as they please. Here they meet old friends and fish for omul. Ordinary people are not allowed to sell their catch. The fish must be for their own use. But that's just fine for these hungry fishermen. At the northern end of the lake lies Bakaskaya, one of the oldest villages in the region. It was first a Buryat settlement, but in time, Baikal reached out to other visitors and held them fast.
В начале, где-то в 1800-х годах, в начале, так сказать, 19 века, стало постепенно заселяться.
At the beginning of the 19th century, the first Russians came to settle here. The local Buryat population somehow made way. There was tension between them, yes, but the Buryat made way for them. And gradually a mixed population evolved.
Русское, так сказать, бурятское население.
If a person is born here, as a rule, he can't live without Baikal. And I, for one, believe that it is better to die where one was born than to earn glory in a place where you don't belong. That is why I love Baikal. Its interests are above everything for me.
It's now late March, and there's just enough sun for a quick nap. Everyone here is preparing for the winter seal hunt. The entire village is in motion. The hunt is strictly regulated, and only men with licenses are allowed to take part. The annual quota is around 6,000 seals, about 1/10 of the total population. At this time of year, the most sought-after quarry are the young pups with their new soft coats. Their fur is so valuable, it's worth the considerable effort it takes to find them. On the day of departure, the villagers celebrate the beginning of the hunt with a traditional toast. Most of the vodka goes to warm the celebrants, but a few drops are carefully spilled onto the ice, an offering for Burkan. With the god of Baikal on their side, the villagers are confident that all will go well. Today, trucks and half-tracks have replaced horses and sleds, but the basics of the hunt have remained unchanged over the centuries. The men still travel to the same prime hunting sites. They still need to know which cracks in the ice can be passed over safely. The journey is just as dangerous as it always has been, and the men just as careful not to tempt fate. For the next 3 weeks, a team of 5 hunters will share this tent. Nearby are the birthing layers of the seals, domes of ice whose tops have partially melted in the sun, revealing the living space below. Born with fluffy white fur, the pups shed their first coat almost immediately, scratching constantly to speed up the process. Each lair has an exit hole into the lake. The pups may be left for up to a week by their mother in her search for food. Dependent on their mother's milk for the first 6 weeks of life, the pups will die if they wander off and get lost. Later, when they switch over to a diet of fish, their coats gradually darken. And their front flippers grow stronger, allowing them to move faster across the ice. But the seals are truly safe only underwater, where people, their chief predators, cannot reach them. Nerpa can dive more than 300 feet and stay underwater for 30 to 40 minutes. Each seal has about 10 air holes spread in a radius of roughly a mile. It swims beneath the surface from one hole to another. Along the way are large blocks of floating ice, like underwater icebergs. They create a constantly shifting maze through which the Nerpa must navigate to reach the nearest air hole. The holes are kept free of ice with a daily regimen of scraping and gnawing. The seal will need every escape hole possible. This hunter, named Misha, wears white camouflage, so he can't be easily seen against the ice. Once he spots a seal, he moves slowly and cautiously to avoid frightening it away. Still several hundred yards away from his quarry, he leaves his motorbike behind for a small wooden sled. The sled with its white sail was developed by the Evenks, another nomadic Siberian people. The wary seal keeps watch, but its vision isn't good enough to spot the hunter. Misha is an expert marksman, but he'll need to get a lot closer to be within shooting range. In the next 3 weeks, he'll spend 8 hours each day hunting. And if he's lucky, he'll just fill his quota of 10 seals. After that, he'll have to head home and turn in his gun to the local collective. The seal's fur will be made into hats and boots by the women in the village, but only if Misha can get close enough in time. Although rifles have now replaced harpoons, little else has changed through the ages. By late May, the ice is breaking up. On land, the signs of spring are everywhere. This is Darsha, in the Bargazin Nature Preserve on the northeastern shore of the lake. 80 years ago, a small band of scientists came here to restore the population of sable, which had been hunted to the brink of extinction. The preserve has since flourished. But in 1914, the team members faced months of frustration. It took them a year and a half to capture any sable. There were so few left. The sable is still a protected species and can now be found throughout the taiga. As the days lengthen, the ice surrenders to spring. Migrating birds return for the warm weather. It's mating time for the goldeneye and the tern. Ponds and streams overflow their banks, impatient to join the lake, while beneath the surface, another sign of spring is stirring. These stony-cased caddisflies have lived underwater in a larval state for the past 3 years. But now that they've reached adulthood, they must leave the safety of home behind. When the ice softens, they shed their stony casing, crawl to the surface, and fly away. This process takes place everywhere around the lake. The adult caddis cover the ground, trees, animals, even people. They dry in the sun, mate, fly out over the lake, and lay their eggs. Then, after only a few hours, they die. For Baikal's wildlife, it's a time of feasting. While a teal dines on floaters, a woodpecker concentrates on a caddis-covered branch. Even the brown bears come out to get their share. In the cool of the evening, when the caddis are subdued, the bears will amble down to the shore and turn over rocks to lick up the flies lying underneath. It takes a lot of caddis to fill up a bear, but there's no hurry. Summer is coming. It's now June in the Selenga Delta. These white-winged terns return every year to mate, lay their eggs, and raise their young. With its long stretches of reeds, the delta provides plenty of cover for nesting birds like gulls and terns. The gulls prefer the mouth of the delta, closer to the lake with its fish. These ruffs are engrossed in an elaborate mating dance, a ritual that few have seen. The males are fluffing their feathers and strutting about trying to attract the females. So far, they're not having much luck. The plainer-looking females seem distinctly unimpressed. A rough mating dance can go on for many hours as the females bide their time before selecting a partner. Meanwhile, the males try frantically to catch their eye. As birds of prey, like this eastern marsh harrier, circle above, these godwit chicks stay well hidden among the reeds. A short distance away, their mother stands guard. But not every danger comes from above. The building of the Trans-Siberian Railway represented the first real human threat to Baikal and its wildlife. With the construction of the railway in the early 20th century came intensive settlement along the southern edge of the lake. Whole sections of the shoreline were scraped bare. The men who built these tunnels were hailed as national heroes. They were opening up the frontier, and many paid with their lives under brutal conditions. In 1905, this was considered progress, not an assault on nature. But it was just the beginning of years of development. In 1976, the northern shore of Baikal got its own taste of progress. It was the construction of the Baikal-Amur Railway, linking Siberia with the Pacific coast. Construction teams tore through the taiga to lay the tracks. And when it was finished, the railway brought large-scale settlement to a part of the lake that had been pristine for millions of years. The town of Severobaikalsk was built to house the workers and their families. It was supposed to be a gateway to Siberia, which the new railroad would help to exploit. But in the mid-1980s, the money ran out, and the town became a backwater. 30,000 people now lived in an area that could barely sustain them. Apartment blocks had been built where the trees of the taiga once grew. Many families still couldn't find decent housing and were forced to live in wooden shanties without running water. And so the pressure increased to make Baikal pay, to provide more jobs for an increasingly underemployed population. But for every economic solution, there was a new environmental problem. The taiga that surrounds the lake may be a rich source of timber, but it's also part of a fragile ecosystem. Since transportation is expensive, the logs are often floated down the rivers that feed the lake. Lumber has even been sent across the lake itself, although this is now illegal. The problem is that decomposing bark from the cut wood can pollute the water. Other threats to Baikal come from factories located miles away. This untreated effluent empties into the Salanga River. There are more than 50 factories that use the Salanga as a drain, mostly in the city of Ulan-Ude. Large amounts of nitrates and chlorides and other industrial byproducts are dumped into the river each year.
The industrial center in Ulan-Ude is responsible for the heavy pollution of the Salanga River. And the river is the main spawning ground of the omul. If the Salanga becomes unfit for spawning, the stocks of omul in Lake Baikal will be drastically depleted.
Scientists are now trying to increase the fertility of the omul to help counteract the effects of pollution and overfishing. But so far they fear they're losing the battle. As for the lake itself, most of it is still remarkably clean, in part because it's so big. But that only makes the pockets of pollution even more disturbing, almost like a desecration. This, for instance, is the Baikalsk cellulose paper plant, built on the southern end of Baikal in 1966. Using wood from the taiga and water from the lake, it produces bleached cellulose used to make clothing. Ironically, by international standards, it's a model factory with relatively clean effluent. But there's no doubt the plant pollutes the area.
The scenery around here used to be so beautiful. Everything would grow. At the store by the railroad, people would be selling blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, lots of them. But after they built the plant, Life has gotten worse and worse. The earth in our vegetable garden has turned brown. Tomatoes, cucumbers, potatoes, nothing grows anymore. We used to harvest 60 sacks of potatoes. Now it is only 6.
This is not an easy problem. This is a kind of problem that calls for change in our way of thinking and in the way we assess our actions. Take the idea of building this factory. The minister then, Orlov, the initiator of the pulp factory project, used to say, "What's there to worry about? We'll build the plant, and next to it we'll have a spa. People will be able to work and rest here." And what was the result of this? People can't breathe properly. They are suffocating at the plant. They get sick, and life has become unbearable.
In the 1980s, there were even mass demonstrations against the pollution of Baikal, at a time when any public protest was exceedingly rare. This one took place in Irkutsk on the Angara River, which flows from the lake. The demonstrations were the first in Russia over an environmental issue, a testament to the importance of Baikal in the national psyche. On the other hand, factories like the Baikalsk cellulose plant employ thousands of people in a region that needs every job it can get. In Ulan-Ude, this is a trade-off most people feel forced to accept. Although Lenin himself approved a nature preserve at Baikal, he too would have put jobs first. With the breakup of the Soviet Union, economic insecurity has increased dramatically. The people of Ulan-Ude consider themselves lucky when they can put meat on the table. Even the folk singers here deride life after perestroika, scorning what they consider the empty promises of the government. They and their audience want more. But how much can Baikal take? Recently, new hopes have arisen that industry and Baikal can coexist. This lumber mill outside Ulan-Ude harvests trees selectively without wreaking havoc on the taiga. By processing them on a relatively small scale, it avoids the huge amounts of polluting byproducts that larger factories produce. It's the kind of operation that Baikal needs more of, say many environmentalists. Forest and timber management is one of the key goals of a joint Russian-American effort to protect the lake by developing environmentally sensitive industries. But no one thinks it will be easy.
The Russian people have a deep feeling throughout Russia about Baikal, and that's a very strong point in continuing to protect it. That's countered by the need for getting on top of their economy, stopping inflation, getting some hard currency in the country. And I think they're somewhat torn by this. They want it, and they don't know exactly how to get both sides.
On Baikal's western shore, the U.S.-Russian Sustainable Land Use Project is developing a plan for reviving the area. Funds for the plan have come from American foundations and U.S. government agencies. And already renovation work has begun in the village of Bolshoy Galushnoi. The idea is to attract tourists. But the legacy of the Soviet era won't be easy to overcome. Everywhere one looks, there are the relics of heedless development and gross inefficiency. It's sometimes hard to believe that Baikal is just a few yards away.
Many years ago, this area looked very pretty, and basic idea is just to restore this lake shore as it used to be. 2 years ago, this sawmill was shut down and left this sort of, as we call it, moonscape. And the idea is just to restore this lake shore and make open air park. And ideally, all these constructions and sawmill need to be removed. And this is what we started to do.
The Sustainable Land Use Project planned and directed the construction of traditional log cabins to house future tourists. But for Western visitors accustomed to hotels and restaurants, Baikal may be a bit of a shock. A villager's cottage turned bed and breakfast may be the closest they ever get to room service.
The tourist going to Baikal must remember that they're going to Russia, and part of the reason they're going to Baikal and to Central Siberia is to experience the culture. They have to understand what they're going to. So they have to be the kind of people that can take a frontier society, which we're really talking about. They have to be the kind of people that welcome that want to go to see new bird life, that want to go to do hiking, that want to go to do some sport fishing, that want to go for these things, that want to go to see the Buryat culture, to see the various ethnic groups in the area. They've got to want to go to this area. They can't want to go to a Club Med. That's not what they're going to find.
Even if the people of Baikal can attract tourists, they will face a great quandary. How can they join the rest of the world while still preserving everything that makes their lake unique? Perhaps in the end, there will be only one real solution. The Sacred Sea of Siberia will have to become the Sacred Sea of the world.
Teachers, educational institutions, and organizations can purchase this program and many other NOVA programs for $19.95 plus shipping and handling. To order a video cassette, call 1-800-255-9424. A production of WGBH Boston. Funding for NOVA is provided by
Merck, dedicated to pharmaceutical research, committed to discovery, improving health, extending life. Merck.
And Lockheed, America's aerospace company, supporting math, science, and engineering education for national technology leadership. Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
This is PBS.
Next time on NOVA. For a stranger in a foreign land, language can be an imposing barrier. But there are surprising similarities among the languages of the world. Could it be that at one time long ago we all spoke the same language?
It's very nice to think about the days before Babel, when everybody spoke exactly the same way.
In search of the first language, next time on NOVA.
For a transcript of the NOVA program you've just seen, send $5 to this address or call 1-303-831-9000.